To be honest, it's not much, but I'm going to wrap it all up here in one video. So if you'd like to know what I read in April and May, please keep watching. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. This is going to be my first monthly wrap-up video, but I will be wrapping up 2 months, so I'll do April and May in this video. I normally wrap up my months on Bookstagram, but obviously I can do that here now as well. But I never posted what I read in April. The first book I finished in April was Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Honestly, the crows have my heart. The duology are 2 of my favourite books ever. Definitely 2 of my favourite YA fantasy books. They are just so good. I've got Six of Crows here so you can see both of them. I got the collector's edition in both of them, and I'm so glad I did because I just know I'm going to keep these books for such a long time. I can't go into too much detail about Crooked Kingdom because it's the second book in the duology, and if you haven't read Six of Crows already, that will obviously lead to spoilers. In Six of Crows, I'd say there was a majority of the world building done there, so in Crooked Kingdom I felt like I could fully just focus on the plot and appreciate it. I haven't read more of Leigh Bardugo's work yet other than the Shadow and Bone trilogy and the Six of Crows duology. I have got the King of Scars and Rule of Wolves. I've also got Ninth House, which I don't think is anything to do with the Grishaverse. Out of the 5 books I've read, these 2 are without doubt the best. The characters are all fantastic. Sometimes I usually find at least one person really annoying. I didn't in this case. I absolutely loved all of them. There are some really hard topics in my opinion that are explored within these books, including oppression, mentions of slavery, there's addiction, there's also a lot of talk of trauma, and I feel like Leigh tackled it all so tastefully and in such a respectful way in my opinion. It was just so well written that it was, I just loved it so much. It was witty, it was quick, it was funny, the kind of book that will make you laugh, cry, feel all of that, feel angry, feel happy, feel sad. There was just so much love in the book between the characters, even though at times it probably seems like they're being cold, but deep down you know that they're all friends, but they're family really. I love it so much. If you haven't read the duology, I highly recommend it. They are so good. I love the quotes on both of the back of the books. I hate those little sticker marks though, but I can't get them off. On the back of Six of Crows it says no mourners, no funerals. We love. On the back of Crooked Kingdom it says when you can't beat the odds, change the game. It's like the catchphrase, but it's just so good. I love it so much. I cannot recommend these books enough. If you have not read them, please go and read them as soon as possible. If you have no interest in Shadow and Bone, you can actually read the duology without reading the trilogy first. If you ever do intend to read the trilogy, then I'd recommend reading that first, because although it's not directly linked to the plot, there are mentions here and there of the story in Shadow and Bone, so it could ruin little snippets of what is going to happen in Shadow and Bone. So if you know you want to read that trilogy, make sure you read that first and then move on to the duology. Just cannot wait for the day that we actually get Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom and are able to watch it on screen, because that will be sensational. The next book I read is part of a trilogy and I am so late to this party. I picked up The Infernal Devices after a lot of people have recommended them, and I really enjoyed reading this. For me, I thought it was quite an easy read. This is also YA fantasy if you haven't read it. I took a real gamble with this trilogy because I bought them all at once without having even read the first book. But I'm really glad that I did. I managed to pick up the hardcover copies as well, and they are just so nice. I love the sleeves. I got all 3 of them from Blackwell's if anybody is interested. Blackwell's is a great place to shop if you're looking for a hardback edition that you know you can't find anywhere else. The first book in the series for me was just easing me into it, getting me used to a new world, new characters, new terminology, all that good stuff. This was the first YA fantasy novel that I've read that mentioned vampires and warlocks and demons, things like that, which I actually found quite refreshing. It wasn't just the same old stuff. All the characters, again, I was about to say all the characters I loved. I didn't love Jessamine. Jessamine got on my nerves, but at the same time, I think that is the whole point of her character. Her character isn't really there for you to like her. I loved Tessa and Jem and Will. I was going to say something then that could potentially ruin the series, so I'm not going to say that. I'll show you the other books. I read book 2, which is The Clockwork Prince, in April as well. It might have crossed over to May, which is why I thought it would just make sense to do them all in one go. And then I read Clockwork Princess in May, for sure. This one's my favourite sleeve. Oh, it's just so nice. In the Infernal Devices trilogy, Tessa, I would say, is the main character. She is American and from New York, if I've remembered that correctly, but she comes to England to find her brother. The rest of the story is set in Victorian London, and essentially as soon as Tessa gets to England, she gets kidnapped and the story goes from there. Eventually she'll go on to meet the Shadowhunters and, you know, all that good stuff. Really, that's all I want to say, because for fantasy series I never really read the blurb, so I don't want to give away too much in case there's anyone else like me watching. It does give you more info in the blurbs. The Magister was a fantastic villain, probably one of my favourites that I've read about in a book, to be honest. They were quite elusive. When you found out who they were, I thought it was so well done. I personally didn't see it coming. That might have just been me being naive. I had a little hunch, but it wasn't solid. I love everybody in the Institute. Really loved the relationship between Will and Tessa and Jem. I thought they were just so selfless and strong and loving. I wanted the best for all of them, but that I really didn't know how I wanted all of their stories to end respectively. I think by the end of the book, the way it sort of ended left me sad. I know that sounds really vague if you haven't read the books, but I really don't want to spoil anything, and it would be a massive spoiler. The ending kind of left me sad for a particular character, but then I did also feel bad for the other characters involved. I honestly just wanted the story to go on forever. I kind of wished that there was more. I really recommend these 3 books if you're looking for a really easy YA fantasy read. It was really easy to get stuck in and get through them, and I thoroughly enjoyed all of them, so I cannot recommend these enough. I'm looking forward to reading more Cassandra Clare, so if you have any suggestions based around that, please let me know. The final book that I read in May was The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary, and I have to say I did really enjoy reading this. The first quarter of the book, I did feel that the plot was a bit tedious. It kind of felt like it didn't really progress as fast as I wanted it to. Definitely when you carried on reading, the pace changed, feelings changed. The story follows Addie and her sister and Dylan, who is her ex-boyfriend, and his really annoying friend Marcus, and essentially a stranger called Rodney. They all end up being in the same car and having to travel hundreds and hundreds of miles to their mutual friend's wedding. Addie and Dylan haven't seen each other for 2 years since their breakup. There's a lot of things that have been left unsaid, a lot of feelings that haven't been worked through and processed. Essentially, they have to face it all on this road trip together. If I had to rank it, I personally would say out of all 3 of Beth O'Leary's books, The Switch is my favourite. Then I would say The Road Trip, and then The Flat Share. I enjoyed The Flat Share, but I don't know if I'll reread it. That's the thing, whereas I do think I'd reread The Road Trip and also The Switch. The Road Trip is a contemporary romance novel. If you like those types of books, I really recommend this. And if you haven't checked out any of Beth O'Leary's other books, I really recommend those as well. That was my April and May wrap up. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you have read any of these books, let me know down below what you thought. If you have read The Infernal Devices or any of the Mortal Instruments books, please let me know, because the Mortal Instruments series has a lot of books, and so far all the books that I've got are hardback editions. I just want to be really careful before I dive into this. That's really worth it, because I will be purchasing hardback editions, hopefully. I loved every book that I read this month. Some I loved more than others. The Six of Crows Duology I really loved. I did also really love the Infernal Devices trilogy, but because they're so different, I don't feel like I can compare them. So I'd say I enjoyed those equally. I would put The Road Trip at the bottom of the pile, but that's because I love fantasy fiction more. So that's no reflection on the book. That's just a reflection of my tastes. So if you are into contemporary romance novels, then definitely pick up The Road Trip. I loved all of those books and I would recommend all of them. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys again soon.